The story you're about to hear is a fantastic tale of revenge and romance. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the story, and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Thanks for watching. Suddenly the divorce papers, 13 years of marriage, reduced to a PDF attachment. I was 4 months into my tour in Kandahar when Becky decided she was tired of waiting. The subject line of the email: "Let's be adults about this. My name is Nathan, 42 years old, a sergeant in the 82nd Airborne Division. I was one of the most feared men in an elite army unit, but that email disarmed me faster than any enemy. I was in the middle of a desert, and my entire life was falling apart back in Spokane." Her message had 3 sentences. She had already filed the paperwork. She had already emptied our joint account. She had already moved her new boyfriend Jeremy into our house. I read the email twice. I closed the laptop, took a quick shower in the locker room, and geared up for my shift. I didn't say a word to anyone. When I got back to my bunk that night, I replied with a single word: "Understood." That was it. No arguments, no begging, no threats. Wilson, my bunkmate, noticed the change. "Everything all right, man?" he asked without looking up from his book. "Yeah," I said. "Just some stuff from back home." He just nodded and the conversation was over. Soldiers know when to let things go. The truth is, I wasn't surprised. 6 months before my deployment, things had shifted. Little details. Becky stopped asking how my day was. She started working later at the dental office, where she was a receptionist. She began going to the gym 3 times a week, but never seemed to break a sweat. New clothes, new friends I never met, and new passcodes on her phone. I didn't confront her. I didn't start checking her messages or following her. That's not who I am. But I'm also not blind. So I made a few quiet moves of my own. Nothing dramatic, just precautions. I put important documents in a storage unit in another city: birth certificate, marriage license, the house deed, which thanks to the VA loan was in my name only, and my military benefits paperwork. I also stashed my grandpa's watch and my mother's old silverware, things that actually mattered. I opened a separate account at a different bank and started funneling a portion of my paycheck into it. Not enough for her to notice, but enough so that I wouldn't be starting from scratch if things went south. The night before my deployment, she hugged me at the airport and said, "Stay safe, okay?" Her eyes were dry, as if she was seeing off a co-worker, not a husband going to war. I should have known right then, but part of me still hoped I was wrong. I wasn't. What she didn't know is that I was prepared for this moment, and what she didn't understand is that I never start a fight, but I always finish them. I met Becky at a friend's barbecue back in 2010. I was home on leave between tours, staying with my buddy Jason in Spokane. She was finishing up nursing school, but ended up working as a receptionist in a dental office. "Less stressful," she said. 8 months later, we were married. Becky used to say she was proud of my service, though she never truly understood it. Her dad was a bank manager, her brother a pharmacist. No military in the family. She'd ask me when I'd get a real job, not realizing that after 15 years, the army wasn't just a temporary gig. It was my career. We bought our house in 2014, nothing fancy, but it was ours. 3 bedrooms, a small yard in a quiet neighborhood. My name was the only one on the mortgage since the VA loan was in my name, but I added her to the deed, because that's what married people do. They share things. My dad died a year after we were married. A heart attack while he was shoveling snow. My mom passed 3 years later from lung cancer, even though she never smoked a single cigarette in her life. They left me some money, not a fortune, but enough so that Becky and I could pay off our student loans and still have a nest egg. I deployed 4 times during our marriage, 2 to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. Each time I came back, Becky seemed a little more distant, a little more restless, as if she was playing a part she'd already outgrown. "I didn't sign up to be a military wife," she said to me once, after I mentioned the possibility of re-enlisting for another 4 years. "I'm tired of being alone all the time." I understood, I really did. But the army was the only place where I felt truly part of something. I was good at my job. People depended on me. By 2019, things started to change. Small things at first. Becky would get annoyed. When I'd call on her girls' nights, she started talking about how her friend Melissa had gotten divorced and was now living her best life. She started making comments about how we didn't have anything in common anymore. I suggested counseling. She said we were fine, just going through a phase. Then came the late nights at work, the weekends away with friends I never met, the new clothes, the gym membership she rarely used. I should have confronted her, but that's not how I handle things. It never was. My dad taught me to think before I speak, to be sure before I act. So I watched and I prepared, silently, because my gut told me something was coming, and in this life you learn to trust your gut. 2 weeks after I got the divorce email, I was in the chow hall when my phone buzzed. A notification from our bank app, another withdrawal of $8,500. Almost everything that was left. I dropped my fork and opened the app. The joint account balance was $22.37. Our $47,000 savings, which we had built over years, were completely gone. Transferred to an account I didn't recognize. Murphy, one of the guys in my unit, looked over at me. Bad news? I locked my phone. Nah, just some account stuff. That night I called our bank from the base phone center. I found out Becky had been moving money for weeks. Small amounts at first, then larger ones. The big transfers started the day after I deployed. I hung up and stood in the hallway for a long time, watching guys laughing, calling their kids, their wives, their parents. Normal life happening all around me while mine was in ruins. That's when Wilson found me. Heard from Alvarez you looked like you'd seen a ghost at dinner, he said. What's up? I don't usually share personal things, but Wilson had pulled me out of a tight spot in Kandahar once. I trusted him. My wife emptied our accounts and moved her boyfriend into our house, I said. Sent me divorce papers while I was on patrol last week. Wilson didn't give me the "I'm sorry" or "that's rough" or "you'll find someone better." He just asked, "What's your plan?" Not sure yet, I said. He nodded. Let me know if you need anything. I couldn't sleep that night. I pulled out my laptop and accessed our home security system, something Becky had probably forgotten I could access remotely. The cameras showed a strange pickup truck in our driveway, a man I had never seen walking my dog, drinking from my coffee mug, wearing my Seahawks hoodie, and Becky was laughing in the kitchen that I had renovated myself during my last leave. Something shifted inside me. Not anger exactly, something colder. Something clearer. I closed the laptop and grabbed my phone. I made a list. Call James, a buddy from the Army who became a lawyer. Check the terms of the VA loan. Contact the sergeant about emergency leave. Review the house refinancing documents, something Becky had casually mentioned last year. Check the security of my military pension accounts. I didn't feel sad anymore. I didn't even feel angry. I felt focused. Like I was planning a mission. This wasn't about emotion anymore. It was about strategy. At 0500 before my shift started, I sent an email to James with the subject line, "Need legal help." Discreet and urgent. His reply came an hour later. "Call me. Secure line only." When I hung up the phone, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to threaten. I didn't even need to confront her. I just needed to wait and watch, and let her own actions become the trap. 2 months later, I was back on American soil. I didn't tell Becky I was coming back. No call, no text. I just checked into a downtown Spokane motel under a different name and contacted James. We met at a diner 10 miles outside of town. "Oh, you look like hell," he said, sliding into the booth. "Feel like it too," I replied. James handed me a folder. "Everything we discussed," he said. "The house deed, the loan documents, bank statements. And this," he pulled out a separate paper. "I found something interesting when I was digging into your finances. It was a refinancing application with my signature on it. Except it wasn't my signature." Not exactly. Someone had tried to copy it, but they got the details wrong. The middle initial was off and the stroke pattern wasn't mine. "Becky did this?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. James nodded. 3 months ago, to take $30,000 out of the equity. Your signature is required for that since the VA loan is in your name only. Forged my signature, took a loan out against our house, then emptied our accounts and filed for divorce? I said, "Busy woman." "It gets better," James said. She listed the boyfriend as a co-applicant. He's got a record, 2 DUIs and a fraud charge from 2019. I took a deep breath. "What are my options?" "Several," James said. "But first you have to decide what you want." I thought about it. "I want what's legally mine." And I want her to understand the consequences. James smiled. Then that's what we'll do. The next day I drove by our house. Her boyfriend's truck was gone, but Becky's car was in the driveway. I parked down the street and watched for a while. I thought about knocking on the door, confronting her, but that wasn't the plan. Instead, I went to the bank. I found the loan officer who processed the refinance. I showed him my military ID, the real signature on my driver's license, and the forged documents. His face went pale. I'll need to report this immediately. I understand, I said. I've already filed a police report. That night I got a text from Becky. Who have you been talking to at the bank? Jeremy said someone was asking questions. I didn't reply. The next day I went to the county recorder's office and filed paperwork contesting the refinance on the grounds of fraud. I filed a formal notice that no changes to the property could be made without my presence. 2 days later, Becky called. I let it go to voicemail. Nathan, we need to talk. The bank called about the house. What are you doing? If this is about the divorce, we can discuss this like adults. Like adults, the same words from her email. I still didn't reply. James called that afternoon. They froze the refinance money. And there's more. Your wife's boyfriend was driving your truck, right? The one in your name? Yeah. He was pulled over this morning driving on a suspended license from those DUI charges. They impounded the vehicle. Good, I said. He also had some interesting things in the truck. Prescription pads from the dental office where Becky works. They weren't blank. I closed my eyes. She was stealing prescription pads? Looks like it. The police are investigating. I hung up and sat on the edge of the motel bed. This was getting bigger than I expected. Part of me wanted to call Becky to warn her. Old habits. But then I remembered the security camera footage. My house, my dog, my life being given away as if they meant nothing. No, this was the path now. I couldn't turn back. And honestly, I didn't want to. I met with the bank's fraud investigator the next morning. His name was Thompson. Short guy with tired eyes and a coffee stain on his tie. This happens more often than you'd think, he said, spreading documents across the table. Spouse deploys, the other spouse sees an opportunity. What happens now? I asked. We froze the fraudulent refinance funds, but there's an issue. Some of the money was already withdrawn. How much? About half. $14,600, I leaned in. Where did it go? Thompson hesitated. I'm not supposed to share that information. It's my house, my forged name, my stolen money. He nodded slowly, then turned the computer screen toward me. These are the transfers from the refinance account. I scanned the list. Multiple transfers to someone named Daniel Spencer. Not Jeremy. Someone else. I'd never heard of him. Who is Daniel Spencer? I asked. Thompson shrugged. Not my department. But you should have your lawyer subpoena those records. I called James as soon as I left the bank. Daniel Spencer? He repeated. Let me check. An hour later, he called back. Got him. Daniel Spencer is a real estate agent. Specializes in quick sales, cash deals. She was planning to sell our house, I said. The realization hit me like a physical blow. Looks like it. The deposits were likely the down payment for him to start working on a listing. But here's where it gets interesting. Spencer has done business with Jeremy Ryan before. Jeremy Ryan is my wife's boyfriend. Yes, they've closed 3 deals together in the last 2 years. I sat on a park bench trying to process this. So this wasn't just Becky leaving me for a guy. This was, what? A planned operation? Maybe, James said carefully. I looked into Jeremy Ryan. He has a pattern. Gets involved with women who are going through a divorce or whose spouses are deployed. 3 cases I've found so far. In each one, the woman's house is sold way below market value to one of Spencer's clients. Ryan gets a cut and then moves on. And Becky? Did she know about this? Hard to say. Maybe she's a victim too. Or maybe she's in on it. I rubbed my face. This wasn't about Becky's betrayal anymore. This was something bigger, something calculated. And other military families had been victims. What do we do? I asked. I've already contacted the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, James said. This crosses state lines, involves military personnel and VA loans. They're interested. That night I sat in my motel room with a beer, thinking about everything, wondering if Becky had been playing me all along. or if she'd been roped into Jeremy's scheme. Wondering if it even mattered, my phone buzzed. Becky again. Nathan, please call me. The bank is talking about fraud and Jeremy was arrested in your truck. I don't understand what's happening. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed, "Who is Daniel Spencer?" 3 dots appeared as she started to type, then stopped. Started again, stopped. Finally, "I don't know what you're talking about," to $14,600, I wrote. Multiple transfers. House listing. No response for 10 minutes. Then, "It's not what you think." I turned off my phone and went to bed. The next morning, James called. "The FBI wants to meet. They've been investigating Ryan and Spencer for months. You're not the first, but you might be the case that breaks it open." For the first time since I got that divorce email, I felt something close to satisfaction. Not because my marriage was over, but because the truth was finally coming out. I met with the FBI agents at their Spokane office, Agent Patel and Agent Donovan. They took my statement, took copies of all the documents James and I had gathered. "Your case helps establish a pattern," Agent Patel explained. "It shows intent, organization. It becomes a conspiracy instead of isolated incidents." "What about Becky?" I asked. "My wife? Ex-wife?" The agents exchanged looks. "We're still determining her level of involvement," Donovan said cautiously. "Did she ever mention financial struggles? Pressure to sell the house?" I thought. "She kept saying we were house poor, that we should downsize. I didn't see the need. Our mortgage payments were manageable on my salary." Patel made a note. "When did this start?" "About 6 months ago. The same time she must have met Jeremy." "And the refinance?" she asked. "She never discussed it with me. She forged my signature while I was deployed." They asked more questions, took more notes. When we were done, Patel handed me her card. "We'll be in touch. In the meantime, do not confront your wife or Ryan. We need to build this case carefully." I nodded. "Understood." That night I drove to our neighborhood again. Parked down the street near our house. Jeremy's truck was back. Must have gotten it out of impound. Becky's car was gone. My phone buzzed. Text from Becky. "We need to talk in person. Meet me at Riverfront Park tomorrow." I showed the message to James at breakfast the next day. "Don't go," he advised. "Nothing good can come from talking to her now." "I'm not," I said. "But I want to know what she's doing today, while she thinks I'm on my way to meet her." We drove to our house at 9:30 a.m., parked across the street. At 9:45, Becky came out, got in her car and drove off, headed toward Riverfront Park. "Now what?" James asked. "Now we wait," I said. 20 minutes later, a car pulled up. Real estate agent logo on the door, Daniel Spencer. Jeremy came out to greet him. They talked in the driveway, then went inside. "Should we follow them?" James asked. I shook my head. "Don't need to. I installed security cameras last year. Inside and out. They upload to the cloud." James smiled. "You didn't mention that before." "Never came up," I said, pulling out my phone. I opened the security app and tilted the screen so James could see. Spencer and Jeremy were in our living room. Spencer was taking pictures. Jeremy was pointing out features of the house. I turned up the volume. "We should list by the end of the week," Spencer was saying. "I've already got a buyer interested. Cash offer as usual." "How much?" Jeremy asked. "420. We'll list at 470. They'll offer 420. Everybody's happy." "What about the husband?" "Becky says he's causing trouble." Spencer waved a hand dismissively. "These army guys are all the same. They make noise, but they have missions, responsibilities. He'll take a settlement just to be done with it." I turned to James. "You getting this?" He was already recording the feed on his phone. Every word. I forwarded the security camera access to Agent Patel with a short message, "Happening now." 30 minutes later, our house was surrounded by FBI vehicles. I watched from down the street as agents led Spencer and Jeremy away in handcuffs. My phone rang. "Agent Patel. We got them on tape discussing the fraud scheme," she said. "Plus conspiracy, wire fraud, and attempting to sell property under false pretenses. We'll need a formal statement from you." "Of course," I said. "And Mr. Briggs, your wife just arrived on the scene." "She's distraught." I looked down the street. Becky was on our lawn, hands over her mouth, watching as FBI agents carried boxes of documents out of our house. What happens to her? I asked. That depends, Patel said, on what she knew and on what you want. I watched Becky for a long moment. 13 years of marriage, good years at the start, before it all became whatever this was. I just want what's right, I said finally. The federal case moved quickly. Jeremy and Spencer cut plea deals, implicating each other and several other conspirators in what turned out to be a 3-state operation, targeting military families. Becky insisted she didn't know about the larger scheme. She said Jeremy had convinced her that I was hiding money, that I was planning to leave her with nothing. She said the refinance was his idea, and she just went along with it. Maybe it was true, maybe it wasn't. Either way, she agreed to a settlement, full restitution of the stolen funds, renunciation of any claim to the house or my military pension, and a signed confession about the forgery in exchange for me not pressing charges. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that email from Kandahar. No fault, a clean break, to as much as it could be. On the day the last of the paperwork was signed, I got a call from Agent Patel. Jeremy Ryan was sentenced today. 8 years for fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. Spencer got 12. Thought you'd want to know. Thanks, I said. There's one more thing, she added. We found evidence they did this to 11 other military families. Your case helped us build the pattern. Those families can get their money back because of you. After I hung up, I sat on the porch of my rental apartment watching the sunset, thinking about those other families, other men who deployed, thinking their homes and marriages were safe only to come back to nothing. I hadn't planned to be the guy who took down Jeremy and Spencer's operation. I just wanted what was mine. But sometimes things work out in ways you don't expect. My phone buzzed. Text from Becky. I never wanted things to end this way. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. A year later, I sold the house. I couldn't live in it anymore. Too many memories, too much betrayal in those walls. I used the money to buy a small cabin just outside of Missoula, Montana. 2 bedrooms, 4 acres of land, a creek running out back. No neighbors for miles. I took an early retirement from the army. 20 years was enough. I had given enough. I adopted a dog, a German shepherd named Scout. I started doing carpentry work for locals. Nothing fancy, but it kept my hands busy and paid the bills. My military pension covered the rest. Sometimes I'd think about Becky. I wondered where she ended up. James heard she had moved back to her hometown in Oregon, working at another dental office. Starting over, I guess. I didn't hate her anymore. To be honest, I didn't feel much about her at all. She made her choices and I made mine. One night I got a letter from a woman in Fort Worth. Her husband was in the Navy, deployed, when Jeremy and Spencer tried to run the scheme on her. The FBI had given her my name as part of the case. You don't know me, she wrote, but you saved our home. Thank you. You fought when it would have been easier to just walk away. I read the letter twice. Then I tacked it to my refrigerator. Some days when the silence got too loud or the memories too sharp, I would look at that letter and remember that something good came from all of it. The last I heard, Jeremy was still in prison. Spencer too. The system worked for once. As for me, I was finding my way one quiet day at a time, building something new. Something that couldn't be stolen, forged, or betrayed. Something that was all mine.